I always believed that Amanda and I had a strong marriage. We'd been together for over 15 years, and though it wasn't perfect, I never thought something like this could happen. Then one morning, everything shifted. Amanda was getting ready for work, and when I hugged her goodbye, something felt off. As my hand brushed against her lower back, I noticed she wasn't wearing any underwear. Normally, that would have been exciting, but this time, it unsettled me. I lifted the edge of her skirt, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why aren't you wearing anything under this?" I asked, my tone bordering on a yell. She pulled away from me, almost indifferent to the fact that I was standing there, clearly concerned. "You'll understand tonight," she said cryptically, then hurried out the door before I could say another word. I stood there, stunned, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind raced, but I didn't have any answers. Instinctively, I grabbed my phone and shot a quick text to my friend, Jessica. "She's gone. Something's off. Can you help?" Her reply came almost instantly. "I've got someone watching her. We'll know soon." This all started just a couple of days before. I was on my usual night shift when we got a call about a minor car accident. After checking that everyone was all right, I headed to the restroom for a quick break. That's when it hit, a sharp stabbing pain. I cried out involuntarily, doubling over in agony. Adam, one of the guys I work with, heard me and rushed in. "You okay, man?" he asked, his face full of concern when he saw me hunched over. "I don't know," I groaned, still in pain. Adam glanced at the urinal and winced. "That's not good, man. You need to get this checked out." I followed his gaze and saw what he meant. A greenish discharge. My heart dropped. I knew what that meant, and so did he. "Thanks, I'll go to a clinic first thing tomorrow. I don't want to raise any red flags here at our hospital," I said, trying to sound calm. The next morning, I went to a different hospital, hoping to avoid running into anyone I knew. Thankfully, the waiting room was almost empty, and they called me back pretty quickly. After running some tests, I found myself sitting in the exam room, feeling anxious and scared. A nurse came in, avoiding eye contact as she took my vitals. "The doctor will be with you shortly," she muttered before leaving. When the doctor finally came in, he didn't sugarcoat anything. "Mr. Johnson, I'm afraid I have some bad news," he said, looking serious. "You have chlamydia." Felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. "Chlamydia?" I repeated, barely able to speak. He nodded. "You'll need antibiotics, and you should refrain from any sexual activity for at least a week after treatment. Also, your recent sexual partners need to get tested." I just stared at him, my mind spinning. "There's only been one," I said quietly. "My wife." After leaving the hospital, I was still in shock. Amanda had given me an STD. I couldn't process it. We'd been married for so long, and as far as I knew, neither of us had cheated. I needed to talk to someone, so I called my parents. My dad answered, his voice cheerful, unaware of the storm I was caught in. "Hey, Dad, can I come over? I've got something I need to talk about," I said, trying to hold it together. "Of course, son. I'll put on some coffee. Come on over," he replied, his voice full of the warmth and support I desperately needed right then. Growing up, my family had always been religious, strict about values like fidelity and saving yourself for marriage. I had followed those teachings and stayed a virgin until I married Amanda at 23. Back when we first got married, Amanda had been patient with me, guiding me through my lack of experience and showing me what she liked. I always believed our sex life was good. It wasn't anything wild or out of the ordinary, but it seemed to work for us. At least that's what I thought. When I arrived at my parents' house, my dad met me at the door with a warm hug. "Come on in, son," he said. "Your mom's got the coffee ready." We sat down together at the dining room table, and after a brief prayer over the meal, my dad gave me a concerned look. "What's going on, Mike? You don't look like yourself." I took a deep breath, deciding it was best to just get it over with. "I just came from the doctor's," I started. "I have chlamydia," my mom gasped, covering her mouth, clearly shocked. "Oh my goodness," she whispered under her breath. My dad stayed calm, though I could see the worry etched in his eyes. "Were you unfaithful to Amanda?" he asked gently, his voice steady but direct. "No, Dad. I swear, I've never cheated on her," I replied, my voice faltering slightly. He nodded, trusting me without hesitation. "Then it's her," he said quietly. "What are you planning to do?" I let out a long sigh, feeling the weight of everything coming down on me. "I think I need to divorce her," I admitted, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. My mom looked devastated. "What about the kids? What about Amy and Rachel? How will they cope with this?" I knew she and my dad were thinking about my daughters. Amy was 14 and Rachel was 13, old enough to grasp what was happening, but still too young to make sense of a betrayal like this. "They'll figure it out eventually," I said, though even I wasn't sure if I believed that. My dad nodded again, his expression serious. "Well, if adultery is involved, you have a biblical reason for divorce." Then, as if a light went off in his head, he added, "Let me call Jessica Turner. She's a family law attorney from our church. She'll know how to handle this." I nodded, feeling an odd sense of relief wash over me. My dad had always been the one to find solutions when things went south, and once again he had come through. He called Jessica right away, and within minutes, I had an appointment with her set for later that afternoon. "Bring your financial records," my dad advised. "She'll want to look over them." When I got home to gather everything, I made a discovery that shook me to my core. About 8 years ago, Amanda had insisted we file separate tax returns. I hadn't thought much of it at the time and just went along with it. But as I sifted through the old paperwork, I noticed something odd. She had been earning far more than I had ever known, getting huge bonuses and commissions she never once mentioned to me. Further digging uncovered a hidden bank account with nearly $4 million sitting in it. My heart dropped as the extent of her deception started to sink in. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda, "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I clenched my teeth, quickly typing back an okay, though the anger simmering inside me was hard to control. Amanda worked as a stockbroker on Wall Street, so late nights were normal for her, or at least that's what I had always believed. But now I could see it for what it really was, an excuse to hide whatever she had been doing behind my back. I gathered up all the financial documents, including the information on the secret account, and headed to my meeting with Jessica. When I arrived at her office, her receptionist led me straight in, and Jessica greeted me with a kind, understanding smile. "Mike, it's good to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances," she said, pouring us both a cup of coffee. I told her everything, the STD, the secret bank account, the late nights. Jessica listened carefully, jotting down notes as I talked. When I finished, she leaned forward and spoke plainly. "Mike, divorce isn't about justice. It's about money. It's about how much you have and how much her lawyer is going to try to take from you. Even with evidence of infidelity, you're going to need more than just the STD," Jessica said, locking eyes with me. Her words hit hard. Even after everything I had uncovered, it might not be enough. "What about the STD?" I asked, desperate for a lifeline. "Isn't that solid proof?" She shook her head. "Her lawyer could argue that you contracted it from someone else. Without hard evidence of her cheating, it'll all come down to what the judge believes." She paused, then continued. "And as for the hidden money, Sarah could easily claim it was a surprise savings for retirement or some other innocent explanation. Sure, it looks shady to us, but proving her intent is a whole different ballgame." My stomach churned. "So, I'm screwed?" I asked, sinking back into my chair. Jessica leaned in, her tone softening. "Not necessarily. I work with a top-notch private investigator. He can start surveillance on Amanda today, and if she's still involved with someone, we'll have all the proof we need for court. It's not cheap, but it's the kind of evidence that holds up in front of a judge." A flicker of hope sparked inside me. "Let's do it," I said, knowing I needed the full truth, no matter what it cost. "Great," she replied, grabbing a notepad. "I'll need details about Amanda's car, make, model, license plate. Do you know where she might be right now?" I pulled out my phone, remembering the tracking app one had installed on Amanda's phone when she lost it a few years back. I opened the app, and within seconds, her location popped up. Got her, I said, showing Jessica the address. She's at a house up north. Jessica scribbled down the information. Perfect. I'll get the investigator on it immediately. She called him, passing along all the details while I sat there, heart pounding. After hanging up, she turned to me. We should know soon if there's something going on. I nodded, trying to keep my nerves in check. What about the kids? I asked, feeling a sudden surge of protectiveness for my daughters. Can I get custody? Jessica sighed. It's going to be a challenge. Courts tend to side with the mother, especially if she's not proven to be unfit. But if you've been the primary caregiver and want to fight for it, we can definitely make a case. I've been the one looking after them, I said, frustration rising. Amanda's rarely home in the evenings. I've always made sure they have what they need. That's good, Jessica nodded. It'll help your case. But are you certain the girls are biologically yours? Her question hit me like a punch in the gut, stirring a wave of doubt. I think so, I muttered. I'm on their birth certificates, and I've raised them their whole lives. But does it really matter? It could, she said gently. Being sure could strengthen your case. If you want absolute certainty, I know a lab that does quick, discrete DNA testing. She handed me a business card for a testing center. I hesitated, staring at the card for a moment before taking it. I'll think about it. What about your house? She asked, shifting to the next topic. It's in a family trust and we've paid off the mortgage, I replied. That's good. It'll simplify things, she said. But we'll still need to divide other assets. Everything's going to be split 50-50. I'll give you a checklist of everything we need to account for. I nodded, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things to sort through. Is there anything else I should be doing right now? For the time being, we'll get the paperwork rolling, Jessica said, sliding the checklist across the table. But let's wait to see what the investigator uncovers before moving ahead. And one last thing, you might want to confront Amanda about the STD. Legally, it's important you inform her. I'll do that, I said, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. Good. And Mike, Jessica added as I stood up to leave. I know this is tough, but try not to act impulsively. Things will get better. Just take it one step at a time. I nodded, thanked her, and headed out the door. Before going home, I made a stop at the lab to pick up a DNA test kit. As much as I didn't want to believe that my daughters might not be mine, with everything that had surfaced, I couldn't afford to ignore any possibility. From there, I went to the bank to check on Amanda's secret account. The numbers didn't lie. She had stashed away nearly $4 million, and I'd been completely in the dark about it. Back at home, I sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee as my thoughts raced. Most men would probably turn to alcohol in times like this, but I'd never touched the stuff. Growing up with strict values, I had steered clear of it, and even with my life unraveling, I wasn't about to break that rule now. As I thought back to that morning, Amanda pulling away from me, saying I'd understand later, a shiver ran down my spine. It was obvious she had something planned, but I wasn't sure I wanted to know what it was. Later that afternoon, the front door swung open, and my daughters came barreling in. Daddy, you're home, Amy squealed, throwing her arms around me. Rachel stood back, looking more cautious. Are you okay? Why aren't you at work? I forced a smile and hugged them both. I'm fine, girls, but I need you to pack some bags. You're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a few days. Amy's face dropped. What's happening? Did you and Mom have a fight? Not exactly, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. But something's wrong. We haven't fought about it yet. Amy looked up at me, her eyes wide, as if she knew more than she was letting on. You caught her cheating, didn't you? She asked, her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. What makes you say that? I asked, taken aback. She glanced down, her voice barely a whisper. I've overheard some of her phone calls. She giggles like a schoolgirl. It was weird. I pulled her into a tight hug. It's okay, sweetheart. You can talk to me about anything. I sighed heavily. But yeah, you're right. Rachel, still standing nearby, glanced at the DNA test kit sitting on the table. What's that for? She asked quietly. I hesitated. It's just something my lawyer recommended for legal reasons, I said, trying to sound casual. The conversation with the girls broke my heart even more. I never wanted them caught up in this mess. But here we were. I explained the DNA test was just a necessary step for the legal process, and although Amy and Rachel reluctantly agreed, I could tell they were shaken. After swabbing their cheeks and mine, I sent them upstairs to pack. Don't forget your homework, I called after them, trying to keep some sense of normalcy, though nothing felt remotely normal anymore. Once they were ready, we drove over to my parents' house. The girls sat quietly in the back seat, clearly feeling the gravity of the situation. When we arrived, they gave me quick hugs and went inside without asking too many questions. I hugged them tightly, knowing that I couldn't protect them from everything that was coming. Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table again, the silence of the house feeling suffocating. My phone rang, piercing through the quiet. It was Jessica. Mike, we've got some updates from the investigator, she said. Your wife's been busy. 3 different men, all since around 1 p.m. today. I'm sending everything to your email right now. Photos, videos, audio recordings. It was more than enough to prove her infidelity. After I hung up, I pulled up the email and clicked on the files Jessica had sent over. I went straight to the audio recordings. I needed to hear the truth with my own ears. The first voice I heard was a man's. I see you're married, he said, and I could hear the faint clink of rings tapping against a glass. Amanda's laugh followed, light and carefree, as if she had no worries in the world. For now, she replied, her voice smug, almost playful. The man chuckled. You're wearing a ring too. My wife and I have an open marriage, the man said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Well, mine's not open, Amanda replied. But I take my liberties where I can get them. I clenched my fists as I listened, fury bubbling inside me. Your husband doesn't know? The man asked. No, he has no idea, Amanda said, sounding completely unconcerned. He doesn't know what kind of woman he married. The urge to throw my phone across the room was overwhelming. 15 years of marriage, and this was how she thought of me. I hit play again, determined to hear the rest, no matter how painful it was. The man's voice came back, this time more curious. What's the deal? Trouble in paradise? Amanda laughed again, but this time her laugh felt cold, distant. He's fine. I taught him everything he knows. Can you believe it? He was a virgin when we got married. 23 years old, and he'd never even kissed anyone else. Total Bible thumper. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't even curse. He'd probably pass out if I said, damn, in front of him. The man laughed and Amanda joined in. Every word felt like a knife twisting deeper. Sounds like a real square, the man said, still chuckling. Why stay with him? Do you even love the guy? There was a pause, and I found myself holding my breath, waiting for her answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was dismissive. I guess, sort of. He's good with the kids. Doesn't question me when I'm out late. But God, he's so boring. My chest tightened as I listened to her throw away everything we'd built together, like it was nothing. The man pressed further. The kids, are they his? Amanda's response was flippant. Who knows? Who cares? He thinks they are, and that's what matters. That was enough. I stopped the recording, my hands shaking. The room seemed to spin around me. All these years, I had trusted her, loved her, built a life with her, and this was how she saw me? I could barely process it. My phone buzzed again, startling me. It was Amanda. I didn't want to answer, but I had to keep my cool for just a little longer. I picked up the call. Mike, are you all right? You sound a little off, she said, her voice sweet, like nothing had happened. Rough day, I replied, trying to keep my tone steady, though anger was threatening to spill over. I'll be home in about an hour, she said, her voice suddenly playful. Still no underwear. You waiting? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Sure. I love you, she chirped, completely oblivious to what I now knew. Me too, I said flatly, hanging up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, wondering if she'd noticed that I hadn't said, I love you, back. In the end, I didn't care. The truth was, I didn't love her anymore. How could I, after everything I just heard? As the minutes dragged on, I gathered my thoughts. I printed out the most damning photos from Jessica's email and placed them neatly in an envelope. Then, I sat at the kitchen table, waiting for Amanda to come home. An hour passed, then two. Still no sign of her. Despite myself, I started to worry. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. By the time nearly 4 hours had passed, I was pacing the house, unsure of what to do next. Just as I was about to give up, the landline rang. I picked it up, my stomach churning. Mike Johnson speaking, I said, my voice tired and filled with dread. Mr. Johnson, this is Angela Barnes from Grace Hospital. Your wife's been in an accident. Can you come down right away? My heart pounded as I tried to absorb her words. Is she okay? What happened? I'm sorry. I can't share the details over the phone. The doctor will explain everything when you arrive, she said, her voice calm and professional. Without a second thought, I grabbed the envelope of photos and rushed out the door, heading straight to the hospital. Whatever confrontation I had been preparing for would have to wait. When I arrived, my heart was hammering in my chest. I approached the courtesy desk, gave the receptionist Amanda's name, and waited as she typed into the computer. She looked up and nodded to another staff member. Please escort Mr. Johnson to the ICU, she instructed. As I followed the nurse down the hall, it felt like I was walking through a haze. My emotions were a tangled mess. Part of me was still furious with Amanda, but another part was filled with fear. No matter what she had done, she was still the mother of my children. A police officer was waiting outside the ICU. Mr. Johnson, I'm Officer Simpson. I responded to your wife's accident. What happened? I asked, feeling a chill crawl down my spine. She was crossing the street when a motorcycle shot between the cars and hit her, he explained. The driver was high on drugs. I'm really sorry. Before I could ask more, the doctor arrived. Mr. Johnson, I'm Dr. Blake. I've been overseeing your wife's care. How is she? I asked, bracing for the worst. She's in critical condition, Dr. Blake said, his tone grave. She has multiple fractures, internal injuries, and severe head trauma. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to reduce the swelling in her brain. Right now, it's touch and go. My knees almost buckled beneath me. I couldn't even picture Amanda like that. So broken, so fragile. She had always been so strong, so self-assured. And now there's something else, Dr. Blake continued. Were you aware of your wife's chlamydia diagnosis? I just found out this morning, I replied, my voice hollow. You need to be tested for HIV as well, he said, his words cutting through the fog in my mind. We've run tests on Amanda, and while we're still awaiting the results, there's a chance she may be HIV positive. I blinked, trying to process what he was telling me. HIV? Yes, Dr. Blake said softly. If you haven't been tested yet, I strongly recommend you see your doctor. If you test positive, early treatment is key. The sooner you know, the better. I nodded, feeling numb. How long will she be here? It's hard to say, he replied. She could be in the ICU for weeks, maybe longer. We're monitoring her closely. He led me into Amanda's room, and when I saw her, my heart stopped. She was covered in bandages, with one leg in a cast that extended up to her hip. Her face was swollen, bruised, and stitched in places. She didn't look like the woman I had known for the last 15 years. She looked like someone who had barely survived a war. I stood there for a long time, just staring at her, trying to make sense of the chaos in my head. She had hurt me in ways I couldn't have imagined, but seeing her like this, it still hurt. After what felt like an eternity, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope of photos. I took off my wedding ring, the symbol of everything we had built together, and placed it inside the envelope along with the pictures. I wrote her name on the outside. Nurse I called softly. A young nurse appeared in the doorway, her face kind but professional. Can you make sure she gets this when she wakes up? The nurse nodded. Of course, sir. I turned to leave but hesitated at the door, casting one last glance at Amanda. As much as I wanted to hate her, seeing her like that still made my chest tighten. She had made her choices, but it felt like fate had dealt her a cruel hand. Goodbye, Amanda, I whispered softly, then walked out. Back at home, I collapsed into bed, completely drained, emotionally and physically. The past few days had been an absolute nightmare, and I wasn't sure how much more I could handle. In the weeks that followed, I made the necessary arrangements for Amanda. I found a small, 2-bedroom apartment and used her portion of our accounts to cover the deposit and the first 2 months' rent. It had a garage and I moved all her belongings there. It wasn't much, but it would give her a place to recover once she was released from the hospital. 3 weeks after that horrific night in the hospital, I finally got the all-clear from my doctor. Thankfully, I had tested negative for HIV. It felt like a small win, but the emotional scars from Amanda's betrayal were still fresh. Healing physically was one thing. Getting over what she had done was going to take a lot longer. Finally, after 3 long weeks, Amanda woke up from her coma. I dropped the girls off at my parents' place and drove to the hospital, steeling myself for what was to come. It wasn't going to be easy, but it had to be done. When I arrived, I spotted Dr. Blake chatting with the nurses. Standing nearby was a man in a brown jacket, holding a manila envelope. He was the process server. How is she? I asked Dr. Blake as I approached. She's stable, he replied. Her vitals are good, and the infection from the chlamydia has cleared up. We're just keeping her under observation now. I nodded, taking a deep breath before heading to Amanda's room. The process server followed close behind, keeping a respectful distance. I stepped up to her bedside, and she looked up at me, her eyes weary but alert. Her gaze flicked to the open envelope I had left on the table next to her bed, the one containing the photos and my wedding ring. Mike, she said weakly. Amanda, I replied, my voice cold and distant. She gestured toward the envelope. So you found out? Yes, I said, keeping my tone steady. You passed your illness to me, and after that I followed you. I have all the evidence I need. The process server cleared his throat and stepped forward. Are you Amanda Johnson? He asked formally. Yes, she replied, her voice barely audible. He handed her the manila envelope and quickly snapped a photo with his phone. You've been served, he said before quietly leaving the room. Amanda's face crumpled as reality set in. You couldn't wait until I was out of the hospital? She asked, her voice trembling. No, I said firmly. You were planning to leave me anyway. I just moved up your timeline. Tears welled up in her eyes as she absorbed the situation. Do the girls know? She asked softly, her voice small and fragile. They know, I said coldly. And they're not exactly thrilled with you right now. That's why they're not here. Don't worry about them. I'm seeking full custody. They'll see you if they want to. But right now, they don't want anything to do with you. Her face contorted even more, her tears spilling over. I guess you hate me too, she whispered, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I stood there, feeling the weight of everything that had happened, but I stayed resolute. You made your choices, Amanda. This isn't about hate. It's about dealing with the consequences of what you did. She blinked through her tears and changed the subject, as if she couldn't bear to confront the conversation any longer. How long will I be in the hospital? She asked. The doctor says another week, maybe longer, I told her. After that, you'll go to the apartment I rented for you. I've moved all your stuff in, and the utilities are in your name. You'll be fine. I pulled out an envelope from my jacket and handed it to her. This is your half of our joint accounts, minus the deposit and the first 2 months' rent. She took it with trembling hands, staring down at the money that once represented our shared life. Then her expression hardened. And my other account? I met her gaze, my voice calm. My lawyer's frozen your secret account. You'll get access to it again after you sign the divorce papers. You can take half. The other half is mine." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You froze it?" she asked, her tone sharp with shock. "I'll fight you for it." I leaned in slightly, my voice low and firm. "That would be a mistake, Amanda. If you try to fight me, all of the evidence, pictures, videos, recordings, will become public. Is that really what you want?" Her face paled, and the defiance in her eyes faltered. After a long pause, she nodded weakly. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll sign the papers." "Good," I replied, turning to leave. Just as I reached the door, she called out, her voice fragile, almost pleading. "Can I call the girls?" I paused, my hand resting on the door handle. "You can try," I said, my voice softer than before. "But don't be surprised if they don't answer." Amanda nodded, understanding what that meant. "Thank you, at least for that." Without another word, I walked out of the room, leaving her to face the reality she had created. As I passed by the nurses, I noticed a few of them giving me disapproving looks, but I shrugged it off. Their opinions didn't matter to me anymore. I had far bigger things to deal with. The divorce was finalized quickly. Jessica made sure that Amanda's secret account was split evenly, and my half, $2 million, went straight into college funds for Amy and Rachel. I didn't want the money for myself. It was always about them. Not long after, I received the final results from my HIV test, negative. Felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. I had dodged a bullet, but I knew the emotional scars from Amanda's betrayal would take much longer to heal. Life went on. The girls eventually started talking to Amanda again, though it took nearly a year for them to see her in person. I didn't interfere. I wanted them to make that decision on their own terms. They needed to come to grips with it in their own way. As for me, I focused on rebuilding. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the anger and pain still bubbled up to the surface. But with time, I began to heal. I realized I was stronger than I'd thought, and I was determined to give my daughters the stable, loving home they deserved. In the end, Amanda was just a chapter in my life. A chapter that ended painfully, but one that taught me more about myself than I ever wanted to know. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is clear. I'll never let anyone take advantage of me like that again. And no matter what, I'll always be there for my girls.